Holly Cotton here, and I am so honored today to be joined by Christopher Scott. And Christopher, I know you have a very unique story. I am very excited to hear about what you're doing from that story. Like I told you before, I try to do a lot of stuff with telling the story of life after being a survivor in your own way. So it's nice to meet you officially. And so start off by just telling us how you got, unfortunately, on this whole path in life.
Well, basically in 1987, a friend of mine, Claude Simmons, I met Claude through my girlfriend. Her name is Brandy, and they lived in the same neighborhood. So all of her family and Claude's family, all of them went to school together. So that's how I ended up meeting Claude. And I worked at the local grocery store in the neighborhood called Tom Thumb. And Claude used to come in and talk to me about his drug addiction. He had a drug problem. And me growing up, in a family with, 8 other siblings. And my older brothers pretty much all used drugs. And I used to watch them, and I was like, it's nowhere in the world I'm going to do that when I grow up, because that don't even look cool. You know what I mean? So I used to just tell him exactly what I used to tell my brothers. Like, if you want to stop using drugs, you got to pretty much want to stop using drugs for yourself. That's for one. And then also, you got to stop hanging around individuals that's going to entice you to use drugs. So that is usually the method of our conversation when I talk to them. So I'm at home, it's a Sunday, I'm chilling out with my girlfriend and 2 kids, and I'm watching the Dallas Cowboys football. And Claude calls me and say, hey man, I need to talk to you about, this issue I'm having. And I turn him down, I'm like, no dude, it's Sunday, I'm chilling with the family. And it's crazy, this guy called me about 7 more times. And now it's late. It's about 10:30, 10:45 at night. The kids in the bed, we watching TV, just chilling, sitting back. And I kind of thought about it. I said, well, maybe I do need to go, because I don't want this guy to harm himself or somebody else. I don't want that on my conscience.
Right.
And I told my girlfriend, I'm going to go and see what he wants. And I always say, do not tell us before we leave out the door that something bad is going to happen, because it seems like it always does.
Intuition.
It's the intuition. It's the female intuition. And she told me that. And I'm like, no, it's okay, babe. I'll be back. Trust me. She said, okay. I got in my car. The drive was about 35-minute drive from me to Claude's house. And on arriving that evening, about 5 o'clock is when the murder happened. It was 5 men and 1 female, set up a robbery of this drug house. And what had happened, the lady went inside of the drug house to see how much drugs and money they had inside. And once she scoped that out, she went outside and told the guys in the car, like, look, this is what I saw. So 2 of the guys went inside of the house, which was Alonzo Hardy and D. Mike, Derek Anderson. And when he walked in, the Hispanic drug dealer recognized D. Mike as being one of the guys that usually commits these kind of crimes. So once he noticed, both of them pulled out their guns pretty much at the same time and fired. The Hispanic drug dealer get hit and falls down and died at the scene of the crime, while Alonzo and D. Mike runs off with the money and the jewelry, and they're gone. Now, me not knowing this happened, so when I entered a neighborhood at around, 11:15 at night, I see cops everywhere because they haven't caught these guys. Now, over the police scanner, it stated 2 African-American men, 1 tall, 1 short, dark complected with a low haircut. And I'm like, you describing half the NFL football, half
Right.
the NBA basketball. That's
Right.
just a very vague description of who you're looking for. So once I get to the neighborhood and see all the cops, my main thing was, let me get Claude in my car so we can get out this neighborhood. So I pull up in his driveway, I blow my horn, Claude get in the car. We make maybe a couple of blocks around the corner. We go to 7-Eleven. I get out and get us a couple of soft drinks, and we sit in the car for about 15 minutes. And we go through the same thing that we go through all the time, is about what you need to do to put yourself in a better position where you don't want to use drugs or be enticed by people that use drugs. And that was the moral of the conversation. Now I see he's calmed down. He's okay now. I feel like I did my job. So next thing you know, we on our way back to Clark's house. Next thing you know, once I turn that corner again, helicopter flies over the car, shines its light. But I'm not really worrying about it because of the fact that we know we haven't did anything.
I was just about to say, because you didn't do anything. So for you like, what y'all doing?
Yeah, but, so I kind of like...
Y'all found him yet?
Right. So I'm like, man, what's going on here? Right. But I know something major has happened because this is a pretty, middle class neighborhood. You don't see all of these cops in this neighborhood like that. So I was like, man, look, I'm going to hurry up and drop you out. But as soon as I said that, I'm like, we coming north, cop coming south. This female officer turns around, and I'm like, dang, the officer, the cop turned around, and he was like, so what? I'm like, yeah, it's okay. So what I did, I say, look, I'm gonna park my car in your yard. I'm gonna get out. I'm gonna sit down until everything clears up. Then I go home. He was like, yeah, fine. I go inside of his home. I take off my jacket. I start watching TV. And as soon as I sit down and start watching TV, maybe a minute later, the cops call the phone. So I'm sitting next to the phone. He tells me to pick it up. And I pick up the phone and say, hey, the two men that just went in the house, we need y'all to come out. So I'm like, hey, the cops want us to come out. He said, man, hang the phone up. I hung it up. It's his house. 45 seconds later, they call back. We need y'all to come outside. And I'm like, for what? We need to talk to y'all. I hang the phone up again. So now I'm kind of getting a little nervous because I don't really know what's going on.
Right. And how old were you when all this?
25.
Oh, yeah. So you don't...
I had never been in trouble like that.
Ever,
so
right.
Like,
unless you're about that life, you do not know what that means.
So
right.
I'm like, come outside. And then, so what I did was I got up and I looked out the window.
See, that's why I put mine on.
You saw me? Yeah. We ended it up, so it's all good. So once I looked outside of the window and raised the blinds down, the whole neighborhood was barricaded. You couldn't come in, couldn't come out. So I was like, look, man, it's women and kids in the house. Because now the cops walking around the house, shining flashlights, it's scaring everybody.
Right.
So I'm like, look, let's just go outside and see what they want. So next thing you know, we tell them we coming out. Before we could even stand up, cops run in. It's like 9 cops. And every last cop got a gun pointed at me. And I'm looking, I'm like, what are y'all, for one, why do y'all have so many guns drawn?
Right.
And for two, why are guns drawn on me in the first place? And he was like, you don't need to know basis. Come outside, we'll tell you what you need to know. I'm like, damn, okay. I'm like, all right.
Right.
And then I walk outside, they immediately put me on the ground, along with 4 or 5 other men. So the passing buyers is watching. And whatever African American man they saw that night that fit that description, they made them lay on the ground on the side of me as well. So now it's about 12 of us laying on the ground. Now I didn't know that everybody on my right side, well, some of the guys on my right side was the actually guys that committed this crime. Me not even knowing this. So the officer picks me up, takes me to the van and say, look, do you know who this officer is? I'm like, no. Who is that? He said, his name is Columbo. I said, Columbo? He said, yeah, Columbo. He said, have you ever seen that TV show, Columbo? I'm like, yeah, I'm old enough. I grew up off that show.
Right.
And then he said, well, Columbo always gets his man. So you will be found guilty of this crime. I'm like, what crime are you talking about?
Right, because you don't even know what happened.
Yeah, I don't even know what you want to question me about or why I was laying even on the ground. So he said, hold your hands out. I had my hands out. He put a plastic bag under my hands and put some liquid substance in it. And they allowed it to drip into the bag. And then they said, well, we're going to escort you to the police car. I said, okay, fine. So I'm sitting in the police car, and the officer tell me, say, a lady's going to have to come identify you. Here, if she can't identify you, we have to let you go. So I'm like, all right, cool, because I know I hadn't left anywhere.
Right.
This lady ain't seen me because my same routine on Sundays is what I was doing. And next thing you know, my girlfriend pulls up.
I was just about to say, and for anyone that's listening to the audio of this, reminder, this is 1986. There was no cell phones.
Nah,
like
this was 1996.
Oh, 1996.
96.
Still, even
Right.
you had to be rich to have a cell phone
Right.
in 96.
Right, for sure.
But yeah,
Yes.
so there was no calling.
No, it was no calling. So she pulls up, and the cop immediately say, "That's her, that's her." And I'm like, "That's who?" He was like, "Her." I'm like, "That's my girlfriend. We've been at home all day together." "What do you mean?" He was like, "Yeah, that's what you say." So they thinking my girlfriend was the lady that actually went inside of the house and set the robbery up. So they immediately handcuff her, sit on the ground, and then they asked us, could they search our cars? She drove a different car than me. And we said, sure, go ahead. Do what you got to do. So what they was looking for was the clothes that the perpetrators had on, because the clothes did not match me and Claude
right.
had on.
Mm-hmm.
And they was like, well, we can't find the clothes. I'm like, what clothes y'all talking about? They like, you know what clothes we talking about. I'm like, these are the same clothes I had on when I came over here.
Right.
They was like, yeah, okay, whatever, right. And then all of a sudden, like they say, like, the lady's not gonna come identify me here. I'm like, okay, what you gonna identify me at? Well, we're gonna take you to the capers, crimes against persons. I'm like, what? He said, yeah, you going downtown. So I'm like, okay, they gonna eventually figure this out and get it together. So they take about 15 or 16 of us to jail that night. And once we get there, they put us in one room, but they put the other people on one side of the room so they couldn't be seen. They put me in front of a big glass window, handcuffed me to a bench, and a cop walks the lady up to the window. I couldn't hear, but I could read her lips. And the cop pointed me out, not the lady. The cop said, "This is the man that killed your husband." It wasn't a question, it was a statement.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, see, that's him, that's him. Now, in my mind, I'm like, I know she didn't just say what I thought she said. Yeah,
Right.
I know she didn't say that. So I'm like, okay, just be cool. So next thing you know, they take me to interrogation room.
Mm-hmm.
So they start interrogating me like, who do you buy your drugs from? I'm not a drug seller.
Mm-hmm.
How much drugs do you buy? I'm not a drug seller. We want the person who you buy your drugs from. No, I'm not a drug seller, so I can't give you nobody.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's
Right.
not what we
You
do.
asking, I don't have the
I
answers.
don't have the answer for what you're looking for.
Right.
So that went on for about 2 hours. So now I'm getting tired.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, man, can I use the restroom? They say, yeah, you can't go nowhere. Now, like I said, I watched enough cop shows.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever room you in, once you walk out and you look up at the top,
Mm-hmm.
that's what you're being questioned about. And when I looked up, it said homicide. And I'm like, oh, snap. No wonder. So when I go to the bathroom, I was able to put cold water on my face. I'm trying to clear my mind.
Right, because now you all work. But now you're like, oh, it's about to get real. What is
it's about
this?
to get real quick. So I thought about it. I said, oh, they put that liquid substance in my hand, dripping. They trying to see if I fired a gun. So I was like, okay, I'm cool. I'm straight because I hadn't fired a gun.
Right.
So soon as I go back to interrogation room, I say, man, what do y'all really want to know? They say, we don't want to know nothing no more. Stand up, put your hands behind your back, you're going to jail for capital murder. I say, what? He said, yeah, put your hands behind your back, you're going to jail for capital murder. I'm like, but I hadn't did anything.
Right.
I haven't harmed anyone.
Right.
He said, yeah, but that lady said you did. What lady? The lady that just saw you.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, man, that lady didn't pick me out. The police officer picked me out.
Right.
And he was like, we don't want to hear it. Come on. As soon as we leave the interrogation room, our officer stops me. He said, I want to talk to Mr. Scott alone. Officer pulls me to the side and say, I do not believe you committed this crime. And he said, I'm going to tell you why. He said, 5 minutes prior to that lady seeing you, we put you in the lineup, she couldn't even pick you out. And when I asked her why, she said she was scared. And I was like, scared of who? She said, scared of him. He was like, Mr. Scott? She was like, yeah. And he was like, how can you be scared of a man that's locked up behind a door, handcuffed, and you like behind this door with numerous of officers surrounding you? How could you be scared? I'm scared of him. He said, there's one reason. He said, for two, he said, look, Mr. Scott. He said, man, you well dressed, you well groomed, you well spoken, you driving a nice car, and we found uncashed paycheck stubs in your back pocket. He said, this is not the type of crime that fits somebody of your caliber.
Right.
His exact words was, this is the type of crime that fits a dope fiend.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, but they telling me I'm going to, he said, yeah, you're going to jail for capital murder. He said, but this is what I can tell you to do. Subpoena me to court, and I would tell the courts that it's not one shred of evidence linking you to this crime but her word, and that's it. So now, I don't trust you because I'm already going to jail for a crime I didn't commit. So now I go to jail, get arraigned, give me $1 million bond. The officer comes.
$1 million bond?
Yeah, $1 million bond. $1 million bond. The officer come gets me and say, hey, your girlfriend want to talk to you, and I'm going to allow you to talk to her. And she said, hey, they saying you killed somebody. And I'm like, really? Do you actually believe that?
I killed somebody,
yeah,
right.
She's like, no, I do not believe that. She said, well, hopefully they'll figure it all out and we'll know exactly what happened. Everybody in the neighborhood knew who committed the crime. Everybody.
Right. That's how it is, though. You always know Pookie did it.
Yeah, exactly. Pookie Ray did that.
Right. That sounds just like Pookie.
Right. So I go back to Masaya and they send me an attorney. And he says it's a life or death situation. That's capital murder. It's either life or death. I'm like, and I didn't even know what capital murder meant.
I was just about to say that 25, because I'm a 23-year-old, and if someone told him about capital murder, he would be like, huh?
Exactly. And I'm like, man, all my older brothers got in trouble, but never to that extent of, killing somebody. And I was like, man, capital murder. So my attorney comes to see me. We talked for a little bit, and I told him, I said, look, I want a polygraph test. He like, hey, they in the midst in the court of law. I'm like, so what? If I take it and pass it, then what they could say? They'll have some kind of, inclination that this man probably did not, commit this crime if he passed this polygraph test on the barometer of we feel like he's really telling the truth because, that's how the lie detector reads it.
Right. And in the 90s, that was like before CSI and all these shows came out. So polygraph was like the popular thing to do to prove your innocence.
Exactly. So he told me, he said, no, I'm not going to give it to you. And I'm like, why? And he said, because you may fail. I said, how am I going to fail something and I'm telling you I didn't do it? That means I'm innocent. He said, well, I'm going to have to disregard and I'm going to tell the courts don't give it to you. Right then, I knew my attorney actually felt like I either committed the crime or had something to do with it. So now I'm looking like, it's no way this guy gonna represent me to the fullest. So in my mind, I'm like, whatever judge I get, I'm gonna have to reach out to this judge and be like, hey, this attorney don't even believe me, out the gate. So it's no way he's gonna represent me, to the best of his ability, and especially he's court appointed. He's not a paid an attorney. So now I'm sitting in jail, and woke up the next morning, and I called my girlfriend, and everybody in the neighborhood saying, "Oh, it was Alonzo Hardy and D-Mike." Everybody know who it was. Everybody trying to go to the police station and clear it up, but don't know police want to hear about it. And the guy who actually pulled the trigger, we call him D-Mike, he went home crying to his girlfriend. Hey, I just killed this Hispanic drug dealer. I'm gonna leave town, but what I need you to do is go to the police station and tell them folks they got the wrong people. They ain't one of them guys that did that.
So even that.
She went down there and told them that, and they told her to leave from down there. If she ever come down there and make a statement like that again, she's going to jail. So now everything that we have in our favor to try to get us acquitted, the courts don't want to hear it. So now I'm in jail about 6 months. The ballistic report came back because, well, I'm in jail about 2 weeks. Now the forensics that came back, I'm not the killer. I didn't shoot a gun because it came up negative. So what did they do? They say, since you didn't kill him, the guy in the car you was with killed him. They went and picked up Claude Simmons 2 weeks later and said, you are the shooter. Because you know why? They feel like they couldn't get no gunpowder for residue off of him because it was too late.
2 weeks later, right.
It's too late. So now, it's nothing they can do about it. So yeah, they go get him, put him in jail. Now both of us in jail for capital murder. So I'm like, well, since I'm not the shooter, why am I still in jail? So it's crazy. They re-indict me. They put the capital murder on it, and then they added aggravated sexual assault. And I'm like, you're like, yeah, you just got re-indicted. I'm like, re-indicted for what? Aggravated sexual assault with the capital murder. I'm like, who I was supposed to? He said, well, when they was robbing her house, his wife was there. When they was searching her, they started fondling this woman, trying to find money or with drugs or whatever on her body. So now it's aggravated sexual assault. I'm like, man, look, I've seen the lady that claims that I committed this crime. And I wasn't trying to be funny. I said, have you looked at her?
Right, nobody's sexually assaulted.
I said, no. I said,
she ain't the sexual assault type.
Exactly. And I'm like, dude, have you seen my girlfriend?
Right.
She's beautiful.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm like, come on, dude. Really?
Right.
Do I look like the guy that need to sexually assault a woman?
Right.
I'm like, man, my mama did not raise me that way. So now, and he's like, well, we got to go to trial. And this kind of was the worst part for me because now you have to pick people that actually is going to determine your fate of your life now. So now I'm looking like, man, I hope I get a jury that's going to be able to understand the position of me. And we went through 4 different jury panels. And everybody was saying, we cannot find Mr. Scott guilty on just her word alone. We need physical evidence. Then one black woman got up and said, oh, I can't be on the jury panel. Judge said, why? Me and Mr. Scott used to date. Never saw this lady a day in my life. I'm like, are you kidding me? And now my girlfriend is sitting behind me and I'm like, man, I don't know this chick. I don't know her. She's like, okay, that's another time. We'll talk about that later. I'm like, but I don't know this woman. And then we picked through more jury panels. Everybody said they couldn't do it. One African-American man got up and said, I can find Mr. Scott guilty just on her word alone. I was like, dude, are you kidding me? Dude, we the same.
Right.
You ain't seeing the color?
Right.
Come on, bro. And I'm telling you, if looks could kill, he'd have dropped dead because the look I gave him.
I bet.
I'm like, bro, really? After he said that, 10 minutes later, I got an all-white jury panel. Judge is white. Prosecutor white. My attorney is white. Second in the prosecutor chair is white. All 12 jury members white. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to get a fair trial.
Right.
With the deck being stacked this high against me. So the judge asked me, why shouldn't we seek the death penalty? And I was like, how could you kill an innocent man? And she looked at me and she said, you know what? You just saved your own life today. We're not going to kill you, but we're going to give you a capital life sentence. Now, this is from the jury before the trial even started. You already telling people that what you're going to give to me, so you already swing a jury in your favor. So now I'm like, wow, this is crazy. And not only that, to top it off, she read the letter out loud that I wrote to her about my attorney. And she was like, well, Ms. Scott, in September of this year, you wrote me and told me you didn't like your attorney because you felt like he actually believed. I was like, really late.
Like, right.
I'm like.
In Louisiana, we call that loud capping.
Yeah, I can imagine. I'm like, lady.
You gonna loud cap me like that?
Like that. Like, you just gonna You just gonna put
my business out,
street,
right?
And this man got to represent me. So I'm like, it's no way.
Right.
This clown.
Yeah, because now he's like gonna be like, oh, that's what you were talking about behind my back.
Yeah. And then I was like, oh my God. And then the judge was like, she was really playing up to the jury. She said, I want Mr. Scott to stand up and I want his attorney to stand up. And I'm like, what's going on? She said, now, I guarantee you Mr. Scott's suit costs more money than his attorney's suit. And I'm like, what?
Right.
Like, what does that have to do with anything dealing with what I'm going through right now? What does that mean? She's swaying that jury. Oh, let's do it. So,
right. Like why he got money? What is he doing?
Right. So, the lieutenant of the police force come to my trial and tell the judge, Your Honor, you have the wrong two men in prison, in jail. He held up the pictures of D-Mike and Alonzo and say, these are the men that actually committed the crime. The judge told him to get out of her courtroom. She don't want to hear it because it's hearsay. And I'm asking my attorney, but isn't this the same thing the woman is saying is hearsay? That's hearsay as well.
Right.
But they don't want to hear about that being hearsay. But this is a police lieutenant that patrols this neighborhood. He patrols that neighborhood. Every cop, pretty much every cop that was there that night, shops at this grocery store I works in. And sometimes they would come in and ask me to go in the back and get fresh fruit and fresh vegetables for them. You know, make sure we get some fresh fruit and fresh vegetables. Right. I'm like, I got you. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of you.
So they know that you're...
So they know I'm an honest, hard-working man. And that's why the lieutenant was like, nah, man, these guys did not commit this crime. I'm telling you who did it. And like 4 hours later, I was convicted of capital murder. 4 hours later. Capital murder trial usually lasts a month.
I was going to say,
2 months. Yeah, mine lasted.
They needed to go deliberate for a while.
Yeah, so mine lasted for 4 hours. Deliberation lasted for 30 minutes. Now I'm sentenced to a capital life sentence in prison, you know, for a crime I didn't commit. And it was funny, my judge asked me, Mr. Scott, do you have anything else to say? I was like, yeah, for one, I would like to hug my family. She said, I'm giving the opportunity. And I told her, I said, one day I'll be back in this courtroom giving this time back because you just wrongfully convicted the wrong person. And that was it. You know, it was so bad that I couldn't even cry. Like my soul and heart would just snatch.
That's what I was going to ask you. I was going to say that I know you've told that story so many times about the logistics of it, but what about how does a person think? Like, what were the thoughts in your head? How were you processing it? Like that was a great way you were saying that. It feels like you just like all of a sudden you were dead. Because we see all these things all the time, but you don't know what the person is feeling. You just know A plus B and this is what happens. So what's your thought process when that first night you spent the night, whenever you got convicted? Like, what are some of the things that people don't realize that people are thinking?
Man, like I was, you know, and it's crazy because when you look at it, I was like, a light switch went on, came on. Now it's strictly about survival. Because now I'm laying in the bed thinking, I'm going to go to prison, 25, I'm 140 pounds skinny, I'm a real little guy. So I'm like, man, I'm going to have to go and deal with these guys in prison. And I feel like, you know, I'm from the hood. I know how to fight. I know how to protect myself and defend myself.
Right.
But putting yourself in that position of not knowing and never being in this kind of position.
And then they have the clicks and everything in there.
Yeah. So you like, how am I going to be able to defend myself amongst these kind of guys that already been here for some time? And you hear the stories about prison life. And I'd sit in the county for maybe 2 more months, and now I'm being shipped off to prison. And one of the worst things I could encounter, they put all of us, like 100 men in one big tank. And it was like, you know how Western guys, you know, run down a cattle and rope them like in things like that. So I'm sitting on the floor and you just hear them slide like 100 handcuffs across the floor. You hear this sound, and that's the sound of them letting you know your time here is pretty much over. Once I put these handcuffs on you, it's a whole different ball game for
Right.
you. And it just kind of like snapped me back into
Because
reality.
the jail was what, like the bunk bed sort of?
No,
looking?
this was like a big room like this with like 100 men sitting in it, and we waiting to get on the bus
okay,
and go to prison.
Right.
But you're gonna hear them slide those
Right.
handcuffs across the floor,
Mhm.
and you hearing that, it kind of like just brings you back into reality. Like, this is really finna happen.
And that's how that when you said it, it reminded me of like when I was watching like Amistad
Right.
with the slaves. And,
Shit.
with-
It's in motion lights.
oh, okay.
Okay.
With the slaves when they
Right.
like they just put everybody's legs in
Right.
the shackles
Right.
or something.
So that's what we do. Is like 50 men chained together.
Mhm.
We walk out, we sit on the bus, and just think about it, you seeing Dallas County, downtown Dallas,
Mhm.
probably for the last time ever, because now I got a capital life sentence. I got to do 40 years day for day before I'm eligible for parole. So now I'm thinking about this 40 years.
Mhm.
Now I'm like, I'm aggravated. I'm mad. I'm an aggravated black man.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
Right.
So
and then at least and innocent. At least
Right,
if you had
right.
done the crime, you'd be
I
like,
would be
you know
okay.
what?
I did that.
I did do that.
I do the crime,
Right.
do the time. So I'm with it, and riding to this prison, I was like, man, what is this gonna be like?
Mhm.
And I couldn't even cry. I'm so hurt. It's like I'm soulless. Like a song, it's one song say, I got an ice box where my heart used to be.
Mhm.
It's cold now. That heart is ice
Mhm.
cold. So the drive was like a 2 hour and maybe 2 hour 15
Yeah,
minute
because they
drive.
make you go all the
Yeah.
way out in the country somewhere.
Yeah, so it's like two and a half hours from Dallas.
Mhm.
And once you get to, certain part, you don't see nothing but fields, green
Mhm.
trees, and you like, this is the last time I may ever see this city again. So, I swallow my bearings, and I'm like, I got this razor sharp focus now.
Mhm.
Like, you better stay razor sharp
Right.
focused. And we pull up to this prison. Oh my God, it's this big brick building with a lot of glass.
Mhm.
And as I get off the bus, I look up. You have guards on gun
I
towers.
thought you was about to say you
Yeah.
see everybody with the guns.
Yeah, you see the
Mhm.
guard tower, and you look up. They got AK-47s pointed at you,
Mhm.
and you like, this is my life for the next 40 plus years.
Mhm.
This is what I have to endure because Dallas County Criminal Justice Department got it wrong.
Mhm.
And going into this building, this prison, it's like once you walk in, you hear that final click of that bar. Doom. You're like, that's it. You walk down the hallway, you smelling all these different kind of disinfectants. You smelling pine sol, you smelling bleach. Because as prisoners, we got to keep this prison clean because this is where we live at.
Mhm.
We lay our head here. So for the next years, this is what I'm gonna have to endure. And going to my cell block, I was like, oh my God, dude. Now my freedom is took. I have no more control over my life. Every day, 24 hours a day, somebody is telling me what I can and can't do.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I'm not used to not having my freedom.
Right.
Freedom is the best choice and the best thing about it all is
Right.
freedom.
Mhm.
Because you can be able to do what you want to do.
Mhm.
And once I got there, I was like, I got to start some kind of foundation for myself to kind of like keep me out of trouble.
Mhm.
So I was like, I worked in the field for like 4 years. Hot, 110, 15 degree weather. You going out no matter what. And then you got to come inside of the building where it's even hotter at.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Because Texas prison doesn't have air conditioning.
Oh, okay.
No, they do not. No, you do not have air
And
conditioning.
we in Texas.
And
where
so you can imagine
120
right,
degrees
it
inside.
it gets so hot to where we have to put sheets over the front of our cell to keep the sun out. And they like, no, you can't do that because if you do that, we're going to write you a case. So now you're like, this is inhumane. This is inhumane
right.
for us to be treated this way. So I said, okay, what I got to do is like build this foundation. So I said, once I got out the field, I said, I need to work in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
I need to put on weight. So I started working in the kitchen. I said, okay, next thing is I got to start lifting weights.
Mm-hmm.
I started lifting weights. I read about 3 books per week, and then I got back into soap operas. And it's crazy because, like, growing up, my mom used to watch soap operas. I used to sit around and watch it with her. And it's mandatory in prison. People think, like, no, soap operas are mandatory in prison. There's 3 things that's mandatory: sports, news, and soap operas.
Okay.
You see the baddest of the baddest in prison watch soap operas. I sit pretty much on the same bench for 13 years and watch General Hospital every day without being bothered.
Right.
Because they know messing with their TV when the soap opera's on, you looking for some trouble. And the main thing was for me is like, I really want to go and have that first fight. I want to get it out of my system. I want to show these boys what I can do.
If you want to try me, right?
Go and try me. So it's always a big guy trying to let a guy. And you got, like you say, you got all these cliques. You got all these, you got the Bloods, you got the Crips, you got Gangster Disciples. You got so many different kind of gangs in there. And now you're a civilian.
Right.
You like, now, if I'm gonna fight him now. What?
Right.
What do I got to do?
Right now, you on the hit list with everyone.
Exactly. So you like, should I throw this fight?
Right.
Let this dude beat me up, or no, dude, I'm from the hood. We did this every day, so no, they ain't gonna be that easy. And it's a true saying. If you haven't seen your friends in forever, it's either 2 places they at. They either dead or in prison. And I found that out, the right way. Because once me and this guy had a fight and I beat him, they was like, man, that little dude did that to JJ. Like, what? And they were like, oh, yeah. So I'm from Oak Cliff. Now, we pretty much control the population of the prison.
I was going to say, now, I'm not from Dallas. I'm in Houston, but I have heard Oak Cliff is not to be messed with.
Exactly. So now, after all of that happened, I'm walking on the rec yard. And my middle name is Sean. And anybody that grew up with me from a child to now, that's what they call me. They don't call me Christopher. People that I've met recently call me Christopher. And I'm walking around the rec yard, I heard my name Sean call me. Like, what? And it's a guy that I grew up with in the neighborhood. We went to school together. And he was like, hey, I heard you had a fight with such and such, such and such. Don't worry about it, it's taken care of. Ain't nothing gonna happen. You know what I mean? Because, you from the cliffs.
Right.
So we gonna ride or die together. So then I was like, okay, I feel better.
Now you can survive.
Now I feel better. But it's like, I don't want that to be the long reason people respect me. Now, you're going to respect me because of who I am as a man, not about where I come from.
But
you know
hey,
what I mean?
Anybody that needs it, we ain't hating on
it.
You might.
No, guys do need protection because I have put protection on certain people that come to prison and get taken advantage of, especially younger African American men. You have predators in prison that looks for young guys to try to get up under young guys, and soon as you give them something, they want something in return. So you like, no, bro, I ain't gonna allow y'all to just do these are black young kids. We are not gonna allow you to make punks out of these guys. It's not gonna happen. Before you do, you're gonna have to run through us,